Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Sunday evenings are Sridhar Chityala time. Today we have some very important diverging information about how such huge loans got disbursed so quickly to Pakistan. How did all this happen, and how do things work in World Bank and IMF? Is it so trivial for a failed state to be getting 40 billion over a period of 10 years? What the heck do they have as collateral? All this and more. Let's welcome Sridhar Chityala ji. Sridhar ji, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel. How are you, sir?
Namaskar ji, very happy to be here. Sunday morning in California and Sunday afternoon or late afternoon or evening in India. And, we're very happy to be here and talking our favorite topic, Sriji.
Thank you so much, Sridhar ji. Viewers, please like this video because this is the first time you're going to see the information. We're going to show you the inner workings of these banks and how they have been captured. They have been captured by a couple of lobbies. Please understand this. India, let it not. India has a lot of work to do. Let's put it that way. Sir, over to you.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Sri, for setting the kind of context. I think there are two very important things that we need to talk about. One is, what's Pakistan's geopolitical play? They have they have really done, if you sit on the opposite side, great amount of work in terms of making sure that they have a footprint in many of the organizations where the decision making and the decision makers are at play. One of the important variables that often people don't take into account is that, just as you have very reputed bankers from India, you do have very reputed bankers from, Pakistan as well. And they occupy very important positions across the banking world, be it in Europe or be it in United States. One of the names that all of you may be very familiar with, an ex-colleague from Citibank, is Mr. Shaukat Aziz. Shaukat Aziz was a vice chairman, very well-regarded banking industry figure. And he went on to become the president of United States, as president of Pakistan. People of that ilk do exist, just as you have Ajay Banga from India in World Bank, and we have had Dr. Rajan, Dr. Chris Subramaniam, etc. in IMF, and there's also the lady from MIT who went on to become, was a chief economist. Yes, Gopinath. So there are several figures from South Asia who occupy important positions in IMF as well as in World Bank, as well as in United Nations subcommittees. They do work very well, very well with the other kind of country members, and some of these decision makings is very well controlled and very well managed. This is a big area that India needs to combat, or India needs to accept that as a reality and move forward, Sriji.
Thank you so much, sir. And viewers, even the nuclear deal where India got some success, got things their way, is largely attributed to Professor Ved Nanda, who passed away recently. He got a Padma Bhushan, and he was the professor of Condoleezza Rice, who was then the Secretary of State. And he helped her navigate through, if Indians say something like this, what does he really mean? See, this is where the language itself has to be interpreted in a way that the other side can understand. Played a very critical role. That's how the nuclear accord got signed. And these are all the unsung heroes who wish well for their, Janma Bhumi. And I can't say much about the other people that you've mentioned, sir, because let's see, you take it forward, sir. Shaukat Aziz goes on to become the president of Pakistan. How much have we, rewarded some of the people? They come and occupy positions in name only. The Babudam in India is the one that, directs the pieces. The politician never listens to these experts, or at least never acts on their advice. That is how I see it. You may be seeing it differently, sir. I'm willing to be corrected. Over to you.
Well, I think the fact that we need to take into account is when everybody occupies institutions which are global in nature. For example, World Bank, IMF, United Nations, etc. United Nations may be political, where you can make political decisions and where you can represent the country's views. But sorry, when it comes to World Bank, IMF, head of Microsoft, head of Standard Chartered Bank, head of Citibank, you are a head of World Bank, you are a head of Coca-Cola, etc. So you look at, you are selected to represent the institution. You're not selected to represent the country. So whenever they have to make a decision, when data is presented, you can question the objectivity of the data. When the data is presented to that committee, the decision gets made. I'm specifically alluding to IMF and World Bank here. And same applies to when you are sitting in JP Morgan or a Citibank or Bank of America. Then when a country decision is presented to the committee, and if you happen to be an Indian at the helm, you cannot say there was a terror attack, so therefore we're not going to. That's an individual decision. The decision that is made is based on the collective data that is presented on whatever the decision is being sought, and the decision is made by the committee.
This applies to people of Indian origin, or does it apply to people of Pakistani origin also?
This applies to all who are sitting in those positions, Sriji. This applies to all who are sitting in those positions. That's the reason why some leaders don't take up these roles. If I have to, speak tongue in cheek, don't take up those positions for those reasons. All right. Whereas for some countries, they take up those positions. For example, India. Why did Chris Subramaniam resign when something was working in the background is a question that we can ponder, right? But for example, from the other side of the border, Pakistan, nobody has occupied that type of a position where they're put in an embarrassing position in terms of making such a call. Whereas currently, the head of World Bank is none other than Mr. Ajay Banga, the ex-colleague from Citibank. Okay, so is he going to say that $40 billion that is granted from the South Asia desk is that it's going to be declined because of reasons A, B, C, and D? The answer is no. The $40 billion got approved, but we'll get to that in a minute, Sriji, since you kind of dwelled into this specific topic.
I'll keep it black and white, sir. In my book, Professor K.V. Subramaniam, Dr. K.V. Subramaniam, he did an excellent work as CEA, Chief Economic Advisor, much better than his predecessors, in my opinion. Again, he got scapegoated for what I would like to know. That man is suffering in silence.
We'll get to that in the World Bank. So okay, we'll get to that in the IMF discussion itself. Okay.
Yes.
So we'll get, because he was in IMF, right? So let's switch to the next slide. Okay. Okay. Now this is December 20th, mid-December 23. This data gets updated, bit late. But what we are trying to point out here, the IMF's current total resources of strategic draw is about 982 billion. Okay, it translates to a capacity lending of about 695 billion. It's a combination of US and Euro, and they have the special drawing rights. Translates to $932 billion. This is as of December 2023, mid-December 2023. This number is slightly higher. And that's not been updated. That's about December 2024. So you're looking at $1 trillion of special drawing rights, which can be allocated to countries which are seeking economic developmental assistance. Okay, economic developmental assistance. Now, these things don't happen, 2 days after or day after Operation Sindoor. So therefore, these decisions have been cooking in the background. Thanks to FATF, Pakistan initially did not get the funding. So they made a case post-COVID-19. They deserve funding. They have been on the list, and there is a lot of impoverishment. There's poverty, there is healthcare issues, there's capital reserve issues. So they have a number of developmental projects that they need to fund. So that was presented to the committee, I am sure, with very reputed set of economists and bankers from Pakistan to the IMF desk. And IMF has got, there's about 40-45 members in the committee, including India is a member of that specific committee. The usual people, the G7 countries and, the G7 countries and the G20 countries are in. Russia may not be in, but China is a very influential player in that committee. United States is a very influential player in the committee. So IMF, where is IMF located? IMF located in Washington, D.C. Where is World Bank located? Washington, D.C. So the Washington D.C. is the headquarters for especially the emerging nations. A significant amount of capital release that they can secure from either IMF or World Bank. So when the proposal was submitted, there were two types of grants. I think $1 trillion or $1.2 trillion for developmental assistance, and $1 trillion, for as a grant for immediately uplifting their financial reserves, which was back end supported by Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is also a big donor to IMF. India is also a big donor to IMF. Now, what is very interesting in this is this must have been in work for the at least 4 to 6 months prior. Okay. Now, I want you guys to go back and check the time clock, the time series. I think somewhere around 3:30 or whenever the DJMO called the Indian counterpart, and then they started to discuss let's kind of end the war, blah, blah, blah. I am making the judgment here that Pakistan was in the know-how that this loan is going to be approved. Okay, this loan is going to be approved, and they needed to demonstrate to the world that this is going to be stopped, etc. And then 24 hours later, at Washington D.C., when the IMF held its meeting, they approved the $2.2 billion as two tranches. Okay, and prior to that, discussions took place in New Delhi, and I think India indicated that please, this money will be diverted to terror funding, so please do not approve this loan. And what did IMF do? IMF doesn't make decisions based on what the political leadership of India thinks, and the loan got approved. Obviously, a lot of from the Indian diaspora around the world raised a hue and cry and to say how this loan can be approved, because knowing fully well. Now, after the loan got approved to hit the smug, Pakistan went on to say that they were going to fund some of the money, whether it is from IMF or whether it is from any other sources, to the people whose terrorist camps were affected or bombed, and rehabilitation to those communities, etc. So to hit the nail on the head, there seems to be too much of sequential kind of events, whether they were well informed and well knew and well oiled in terms of the diplomats at work and the bankers at work at IMF on behalf of Pakistan, and the committee members at work who approved it. And they approved it based on not Operation Sindoor or the Pahalgam attack, because Pakistan continued to insist the Pahalgam attack is not the state actors nor the involvement of Pakistan government. So if you have to present some data, you have to present the data at the committee. Then I'm going to hand over to you, Sri. Okay. So
Sridharji, I beg to differ. If IMF is the best bankers of the world assembled in under one roof, they are the stupidest lot I have seen in my life. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. Sorry, sir, some of these people are your esteemed colleagues or were your esteemed colleagues, and they can listen and they can rant on my channel as by way of comments as to why I am stupid for calling them stupid. But I will tell you the facts on the ground, sir. These people have no business taking taxpayer money and putting it out this way. Second of all, sir, I'll give you another example where there's another country just like Pakistan. This is Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, after Sheikh Hasina was driven out, rioting was taking place and Hindu establishments were being attacked systematically. Now, somebody from IMF visits Bangladesh, their equivalent of cabinet secretary, that is the chief babu, chief bureaucrat. This guy is sitting in his office and he's watching all these riots, and this IMF official, and they are supposed to approve the loan for Bangladesh. He goes there and he's sitting there and he expresses concerns. What's going on? You have all these Hindus rioting, and he's pointing to the TV. He's pointing to the TV. Both of them are watching. He's pointing to the TV. Look, what is going on? And you are expecting us to give you IMF loan? You know what that bastard does? He calls his assistant. The fucker doesn't even know how to use a remote, sir.
Right, right.
And gets that guy to turn the thing off and puts a
Yeah, yeah.
blank face. Sir, let me finish. Puts a blank face and says, no, everything is fine. And this is the same IMF body that is approving loans. What bullshit are they talking about, sir? I'm sorry to go on a rant on this. The point I'm trying to make is these people are not making proper banking decisions. This is my stand and I stand by it. If anybody wants to rebut with data, don't go on a rant. Thank you by way of comments. I'll rest my case, sir. Please continue.
Right, right, right. I can understand your emotion. I can appreciate your emotion. I can appreciate your rant. I can appreciate the kind of contrarian observations that you have made. But let me tell you, as a banker who has sat in some of these meetings and some of the committees, I can tell you, people who are sitting and making those decisions in those committees are not looking at TV screens. Okay, they're not looking at TV screens. They're looking at the data that is presented to them, and the data that is presented to them to make a decision, yes or no. Okay, when you have 2 or 3, 4, 5, 6 countries, are big donors, say, look, these are normal course of events that kind of happen. If they are, I don't even know that discussion comes in. They look at objectively the data that is presented in front of them, not looking at the TV screens. Okay, and they're making the decision, which is to say, $2 trillion is not a significant kind of an amount, but is a good developmental assistance. How much they're going to kind of, and they made a fair case in terms of all the poverty thing. There were 100, I am told that there were 103 different initiatives listed with different amounts allocated. Now, the reason why I'm again reaffirming this is about 10 days later, Pakistan cancelled all those projects. 103 projects got cancelled. They said there is a national emergency and money is going to be reallocated. But when the decision was made to allocate 2.2 trillion, it was made, and it's only 2.2, it was not 20 trillion, 2.2 billion, and it was not 25 billion. This decision was made based on the data presented. And unfortunately, this is how this large institution works. Pakistan has its allies, and Pakistani bankers know how to present. Pakistani bankers know how to time data and the presentation of the data. And obviously, a lot of funding had not happened, and a lot of things stopped, during as soon as Trump took over. But this decision was made, based on the data, and that's all they're looking at. And whether they were stupid, dumb, I can't kind of comment. These are the guys who are the bureaucrats. Because IMF and World Bank have got both bureaucrats and bankers sitting. Most notably, IMF has got a lot of economists and bureaucrats rather than the bankers. And India is well aware of the situation. So therefore, my judgment in this is, my point in this is that the timing of actions and timing of decisions in terms of the war and the finance seems to be in the know-how, and all these things seems to have been coincidentally maybe or intentionally timed to secure the funding. The first funding was 2.2 billion. The second funding was, we'll get to the second funding in a moment. That's a $40 billion. They have an annuitized $5 billion or $4 billion per year guaranteed for the next 10 years. So they have secured somewhere between $4 to $5 billion of funding for the next 10 years. And obviously, there will be some backhand support from countries like Saudi Arabia, not China, but Saudi Arabia, and maybe even Qatar. So you know how this geopolitics and the world of banking works. In 2016 to 2020 Trump era, situation may have been different, but clearly we are in a very different situation as far as the sanctioning of the IMF and the IMF processes, which are controlled by large donors. When we come to World Bank, we'll reveal some more information, but let's pause here for the IMF, and I will also answer your question on Dr. Chris Subramaniam in a minute after you ask me any other questions, Sriji.
No, sir. Like I said, I know him. I have not had the fortune of him coming on our channel. Indian bureaucracy works in very funny ways. Is all I can tell you, viewers. I believe personally that they are the reason why we are shadow banned in many of the channels. I could be wrong. Please prove me wrong. But I've said this thing. I've stuck to my guns. I've even had talks with people, and they just confirm what they say. I mean, these are all. This is the way they are. Let's skip this one. I got the sequence wrong, Sachin. Let's go to the next one. We'll come to this one in a second. Yeah. So this 40 billion, the simple way I look at it, Sridharji, the simple way. See, think of me as a UP Kisan, okay, with 1 biga land. I am looking at it and saying, oh, Pakistan is realizing that they will not be a single entity anymore. So in order to get these kinds of loans, they need to project this as a single entity. This is probably their last chance to project themselves as a single entity, and this is the last chance for them to pad their pockets. That's how this 40 billion has come about. Again, this is my comment, my observation, coming from a guy who has 2 biga land in India. This is how close India came to breaking them up into 4 parts, and they pulled back, which is very unfortunate in my opinion. Over to you, sir.
Let me tell you, I think the pullback, I totally endorse your view on the pullback. It's task incomplete. Now, coming to World Bank, okay, coming to World Bank, there are about 5 countries who are very large donors: United States, China, UK, Germany. These are very big donors to the World Bank. And World Bank provides a lot of infrastructure developmental assistance. A thorough and well-prepared case was presented to World Bank, and 4-5 influential members of the committee, okay, take input. The subcommittee, which is headed by a German banker who manages a portfolio of, I'm talking about a total portfolio of about $50-55 billion. I'm talking about only South Asia, okay, which is Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, then Afghanistan, etc. So, including India. India also gets a little bit of the loans from World Bank for some of the project. States can go and also get secure loans. Okay, Martin Reiser from Germany, who has an oversight, vice president for the South Asian region, he oversees the loans that are granted to such nations. So obviously a well-prepared case. Now Germany, remember, is also a big donor along with US. So if there ought to have been objections coming from, forget China will always support Pakistan. If objections needed to have come from the committee, it should have come from United States, and it should have come from Germany, or it should have come from even France. Now, all these nations, when you talk about US, when you talk about France, when you talk about Germany, when you talk about China, they are all, in some way or the other, singing the Pakistani song while condemning the Pahalgam attack. So what are they going to do? They are going to direct their board members to say, okay, if the documentation is good, they have not had, it's a 40 billion, very optically well presented. It's only a $4 billion annualized, but $40 billion is secured and approved. And so to the world, notably India and Indian allies, it looks like, these kinds of rubbish is going on. And, how do you kind of, at this moment, when you have had a terrorist attack, how do you kind of sanction, or don't you think you should have at least paused? But who are the people who are directing? Which countries are directing their bureaucrats to make the decision? You are the judge. And if those bureaucrats get their direction from the political wing of the respective governments, then it is what you call fait accompli. So therefore, I think right in the middle of the war, because it's still at pause. It's not a termination of Operation Sindoor. Right in the middle, when they've been humiliated, and when all the stuff that you have heard from Sri Iyer and the various military generals who have come and spoken, right in the middle of this, in terms of the damage that Pakistan has, they get what they needed, which is significant amount of cash infusion. And they have started to celebrate, which is to say, we have won. What have they won? They have won this badly needed cash
which can again fund the duality of terror state and the duality of securing arms. Now, if Chinese equipment has failed, now they're going to tell, hey, United States, India is buying arms from Russia. Now I have got money from World Bank and IMF. Let me commit to you 10 to 15 billion dollars, but I need this equipment coming in the next 2 to 3 years. Now, this is a lesson whether Trump is conscious, unconscious, I don't know, but the story is, but he must know. Then he's saying, hey, I'm getting all this kind of arms deal. I'm not getting from India, so it's okay. I'll kind of wink, and then I get my stuff. This is exactly what happened is exactly what happened when in the prior years during what I call as Cold War and post-Cold War, Pakistan got a significant amount of loans. Most of the loans were diverted towards funding their army and the army machinery, okay, as against developmental programs. Now, the stupid banker should ask the same question. Hey, in the past, I've given you loans. What have you done? No, they don't worry. These kinds of governmental large institution doesn't focus on the past. They only focus on what is presented today and what they need to make a decision and dispense. They do not make any kind of past calculations or kind of past miscalculations. It's a kind of a good payback. As Trump used to say, we borrow money from China and then we kind of spend on importing from China. So Trump must be told, hey, this is what is happening. Okay, you are winning, but you're not going to win, the broader game in terms of the strategic play. Does he care? I don't think he doesn't. He cares. But the story is, Sriji, this is how the World Bank and the World Bank Committee works. They take decisions based on today. And this is one of the machineries that Pakistan has learned to play. And they have very, very reputed bankers in the U.S. banking industry and the European banking industry they occupy. They also have an excellent media machinery. If you see some of the articles coming out from Reuters, CNN, CNBC, Nikkei, I'm naming this because the reason is these articles have appeared. Many of those articles are written from Pakistan. They represent a view which is contrarian to the truth. But this is how this world works, Sriji. That's how it works.
Sir, there are 11 batsmen. There are 11 players in a cricket team. And this is comprised of world team. And this world team, you have one batsman who is a decent bat. But for reasons unknown, you withdraw that batsman from the playing 11. Okay. I still am trying to understand the logic of the Indian government, sir. This is where you come in now and explain what happened to Dr. K.V. Subramaniam. Over to you.
Well, okay, let me tell you. See, whenever you are sitting in IMF roles, when I make a case to my leader, which happens to be Modi ji, sir, I know this decision is coming up, and this decision is problematic. I know it has to be a political decision, but I'm 45-year-old. I have a long career in the industry. I have to teach, but I have to also, maybe I'm going back as the chief economist of IMF, or I may be going as the lead banker in the banking committee of World Bank or the board of the World Bank. This will have an impact if I sit and make a political decision when my fellow members are making. My belief is that KBS made his case to Modi ji, and Modi ji said, yes, I hear you. And the only option that is left is to resign so that you preserve, and you are not there, and you are not in a difficult position to make the decision. Now, this happens again in the industry. This also happens in this kind of quasi academic, political, and institutional kind of engagements that happen. If he had happened to have been an IAS, purely an IAS bureaucrat, he would have sat there and made a decision. But we are talking about a professor. We are talking about an economist who may tomorrow be the chief economist in IMF or World Bank, rather than not a junior role, but a low role that he was in. This is what has he was not called and said you are fired, but I think there was a discussion that took place. That's why I say to you that these processes have been at work for quite some time in terms of the loan sanction, and that is why this attack is more than meets the eye in terms of a lot of circumstances surrounding it. Now, I need to make one other important point on the World Bank situation. There are three very important billionaire donors who also fund World Bank: Michael Bloomberg, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates. Okay, you know what their I will exclude Warren Buffett, Michael Bloomberg and Bill Gates. You know that story in terms of the billionaires, their own non-profit organizations, and plunging into geopolitical interferences. Okay, Soros is not one of them, but where Soros used Gates or somebody is an entirely different point. But they are also drivers of influence in decision making. So in World Bank, not in IMF, in World Bank, there are three very big donors to the World Bank funding.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you're really shedding light on some of the processes that take place. Data is only one part of the decision-making progress. That's how I understand it. There's also political leaning and nudging that goes on. Unfortunately, India is ending up on the losing side consistently across banks. That's what India needs to concentrate on, how to not get caught like a deer in the headlights. That's all I can say. India is trying very hard. India is growing up quickly, but the thing about this is the other side is not very strong. But they know, they are like, Shakuni clan, sir. They are like Shakuni clan. The clan decides that, okay, everybody is going to die. I'm going to give my one morsel of rice to this young boy, Shakuni, so that collectively he will take revenge for all of us when we die. This is how I see Pakistan. These guys are gone, but they have got their people in the right places who always consider themselves they are Muslim first, Pakistani next, and everything else they are after that. That's how I see it, sir. Again, you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. Some of these people have.
I agree with you, Sriji. I think, but I'm just trying to tell you how the decision making works in these institutions. Okay,
absolutely,
now,
sir.
Okay, and I'm saying the other point that I want to make is that India has consistently maintained. Only now, Dr. Subramaniam Jaishankar has agreed that he has conceded that he needs to have an advocacy group. Historically, when he has go back and study his interviews and missions, he says, no, we don't. We can happy to meet the think tanks and advocacy groups, but we are happy directly to work with the people. So India has never used advocacy groups, has never used think tanks. So this has been harnessed by Pakistan. It's also been harnessed by some of the opposition parties in India. That is never questioned. How many of the people from the Congress party were in United States when some of these things were going on? Of course, I'm not an in-depth expert on the Indian politics and the Indian kind of political satire, but there's quite a few people who were there. Okay, so during this particular period. So you are right. India has not invested in this money. It believes it has its own merit. That's number one. Number two, Sriji, I think India still believes, and unfortunately they probably have to change tune, that they can battle on the war front and dispense with the issues on the other front. I don't know whether that works very effectively, Sriji, because even Israel, the strongest ally of United States, has got its pro and advocacy groups to kind of working with United States. I think it has to change the course, and it has to take this factor into account and work. And the way we bankers work is you have to work your what we call informal networks, and who are the people in these bodies, and people have to invest time. This is not the way, at least Modi ji's finance ministry, as well as its foreign ministry or its geopolitical and national security works. They do a good job on that side, which is to say we need a footprint in CENTACOM. But on these
world financial institutions and United Nations, I think there's a lot of work to be done in terms of building up India's kind of strategic arsenal.
And now, as if all this is not enough, here comes the insult after the injury. Pakistan makes it to the UN subcommittees on terrorism oversight and Afghan oversight. So, of course, you can say these are all by rotation. It doesn't have a lot of significance. It's a group decision, group thing. Your comment, sir. I think I have ranted enough.
No, you have. I think that the okay. Who are the kind of the big members of this committee which elect this? Right? Who are they? It's by turn. But it expires in December 2025. But coming at this time, it's obvious that they want to hurt or embarrass India. Who are the people? The U.S., China, Russia, and there's one other nation I forget. These are the 4 members. Three of them are permanent members of United Nations Security Council. They, and then the voting takes place with the subcommittee members. And if the 3 permanent Security Council members, say yes, then it pops up. So they ask, well, you all probably remember Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was had an oversight for this. Non-democratic nation having an oversight for a terrorism subcommittee or terrorism oversight. So again, United Nations, is riveting. And again, 2020 to 2024, when Biden administration had a very strong footprint in the United Nations, when Biden administration had very strong footprint in institutions such as World Bank and IMF, Pakistan played a significant role in making sure that their footprint was present. They have done all the hard work. I think myself and Sriji had covered an extensive summary of who are the people in the State Department, who are the people in the Defense Department, and who are the people in the National Security Department during that particular period. All this has happened in 2025 May, and 2025 January is when President Trump took over. But all of this work had happened during that particular period, and we are beginning to see the ill effects of it right now, including the FATF withdrawal happened during that 2021 to 2024 time period, Sriji.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Next one, please. Sir.
Yes,
Talk about this, sir.
Pakistan's influence has grown, and they are now discussing 2 important things. And one that they are discussing is export of some minerals. And so all of a sudden, the gold or the oil is the rare earths. Now, where are the rare earths? They are in Quetta region. They are in the Balochistan region. So Pakistan has said, hey, we can export to you those unvetted. You need them. But as a reciprocal gesture, we need import of machinery, aid, and equipment.
Okay. Sir, I have a simpler way to solve this problem. Let US could have recognized Balochistan and could have done the agreement with them. If US recognizes Balochistan, Pakistan cannot do diddly squat. They could have done that, easier to control. You could have had your Jacobabad base. You could have evicted China from Gwadar. All these things for a fraction of the amount that you are going to spend now. Mr. Donald Trump, you think you are very smart businessman, right? Have you ever considered this? My question to you. Sir, over to you.
Charlie India Apple. Charlie India Apple. Who is Charlie India Apple, Sriji?
Viewers, you need to put the first letters together to understand what he means. Sir.
So Charlie India Apple is at work. Okay. Was at work, and is at work. was at work most recently in Russia and is at work and continues to be at work. There's a very
Sir,
important.
is this the official Charlie India Apple or a renegade group inside Charlie India Apple?
Any of the combination that you can think of, Shriji, any of the combination. Okay, none of these things happen just like that. Now, there's a very important decision that also happened, which points to Charlie India Apple. Oversight of Afghanistan. Why oversight of Afghanistan? The largest reserve of poppy. So there is more juice and opium in this, not just merely some of these things, rare earths. So there's a much bigger, and all of these things play a part. And as I mentioned to you, 2021 to 2024 were the worst years as far as the geopolitical stranglement of India is concerned via the bureaucratic front. India can punish Pakistan or Bangladesh to the death knell, but the bureaucratic geostrangulation, there's a big game that India has to play if it has to win that one.
I wonder if the Charlie India Apple unit got a little pissed off that India convinced Afghanistan to stop its poppy production. I think India convinced them to stop its poppy production.
Exactly, G.
They bought the religion.
And the world powers responded with
Yes,
giving
indeed.
them the oversight.
Viewers, we are dispassionate observers. We are looking at the data and giving our analysis. It's up to you to take our word for it or not. But clearly, there is some truth in what we are saying. I mean, we connect the dots. Somebody's business goes away. The ISI's oxygen goes away. What happens? This is what happens. Sir, we have some more things to cover. Has the US moved some strategic assets out of Pakistan that they never had?
Exactly. Exactly. They never had, but you are pushing fake news after fake news after fake news, which is to say, one of Noor Khan airbase was under the oversight. Even the Pakistanis are not allowed to enter. Imagine Noor Khan airbase and Pakistani generals, and Pakistan was not allowed when there was, the relationship was at its low. So, but this is the type of story that is getting, I can understand Bagram airbase, but nothing inside. Okay. And I think somebody mentioned that very, very aptly mentioned by the Indian delegation. They had Osama bin Laden in Abbottabad, which is, right in the center of their strategic area.
Operation, yeah, region of operations.
Yes. So therefore, I think that there's a lot of rubbish that is being dispensed. A lot of things have been moved out. There are no US. There were not any US assets in terms of US assets being moved out. But one can kind of keep running these stories, Shriji.
Sir, next one, yeah. Had Indian Navy been fully unleashed, Pakistan would have been split into 4. Sir, this is all Monday morning quarterbacking, if you ask me. After the fact, they could have ignored the phone call for 24-hour period, achieved their objectives. You remember the 67 war? You remember the 67 war?
Right.
Henry Kissinger, 67 or 73? 73 maybe. Henry Kissinger works out a terms of ceasefire between the Arab states and Israel, and then leaves a small window of opportunity for Israel to acquire its objectives.
Right.
Which they did.
Yeah, he did it, but Kissinger's decision, we really have to kind of question in hindsight and the wisdom and the rationale, whether he was really a friend of the Jewish state. We can debate that on another day, Shriji. But coming back to this, there is, as they always say, there is no fire, there's no smoke without fire. I believe there's some truth. It's not Monday morning quarterback. I think India, I am not a military man. I am a banker, economist, and geopolitics intersects banking and politics. If sanctions have to be applied, we come in. If we have to understand the movement of flow, we, the bankers, come in. If we have to study the economic consequences of certain actions, we come in. So to that extent, we do play an important role in providing the strategic input when the security decisions get made. I believe that that he is right. The defense minister is right, and I believe they should have prosecuted, achieved this, and still done the ceasefire rather than leaving everything this half incomplete. That I completely agree with him to that extent, Sriji.
Next one, please. Last slide, sir. Sir, summarize it. Sir. Bring it all in. So, sir, we kind of skipped over one important topic. The US did not move. The US did not move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sir, our viewers will understand what the US did not move from Pakistan. Could you please tell us what the US did not move from Pakistan, or is in the process of not moving from Pakistan?
Well, I think that they did not move their F-16s, which you understand. They did not move. They did not move their F-16s. They did not move some of the important heavy helicopters and tanks which they had supplied. They did not move them out. They also had not moved. I mean, there were no nuclear assets, so that part of it is a little bit murky in terms of the things that are coming out. There's also observers and attaches always present who are always pro-United States, pro-Pakistan. They are still there. They have not been moved out. I think we have given about 4 or 5 important, we can keep going further, but yes, if one has to call those as strategic assets, they have been left intact, and as much as the terror outfits have been left. Yes, they had huge casualties, but the core members are still present. Their funding is secured. Their relationship with army is established. The question is, will India support Baluchistan in its, or going to leave them high and dry? Remains a question mark. As far as the funding is concerned, has happened. There's a very clear demonstration to India that India has to get its act together in terms of accessibility and decision making as far as World Bank and IMF is concerned. It can choose to ignore, and Pakistan will continue to secure its funding. At UN, India is a powerful voice. This is one of the reasons why UN, as India has not been made a permanent member. Whether President Trump will make the bold move and dismantle these institutions, or whether India will be left to deal with this in 4 years' time will tell. But a lot of work needs to be done in terms of mobilizing, to make sure that such important roles where Pakistan itself is an aggressor, at least in India's belief, it's an aggressor, that they are not left holding these positions and managing the agenda, Sriji.
Sir, thank you so much. Viewers, we don't have time to take all the questions. We'll just do a couple of acknowledgements and then we'll wrap this up. We have another important program coming up with General Ravi Shankar and General Dushyanth Singh in just about 45 minutes time. So I need to have a small break and then start again. Sir, let's take a few acknowledgements, please. Magnum Opus, thank you so much for your super sticker. Thought Provocateur, thank you so much. For Pakistan, terrorists are their actual prized asset that can earn them huge forex money from the US, UK and West, and their nukes are NPAs or liabilities.
At least India has made sure that they are not usable for some time.
Pawan Kishore wants to know, India is now the 4th largest economy, definitely an achievement, miles to go, but there is many middle income trap danger on the way. How can we avoid it? How can we learn from Korea and Malaysia? Or what can we learn from Korea and Malaysia?
Well, I think India has got a very well, one of the things that India has done exceptionally well, and nobody wants to give credit and nobody wants to accept. India has done exceptionally well in terms of its economic management around all segments and all sectors. Okay, but just look at inflation. India's inflation has come down quite dramatically. And look at the prime lending rate. India has come down. Look at the industrial and manufacturing sector. It has done exceptionally well. Now you have triggered a thought. Now I'll answer this question completely. I'll respond differently, but it's completely offhand. It is believed, and I think probably the next program set of people can answer this question, that there are in the Gilgit-Baltistan area, that there is in China is training the Pakistani pilots. Their specific focus is to target India's industrial and economic complexes and civilian, not the military. This is the plan. They attempted in the prior, they were not successful, but it is believed that the Chinese are training, but the military generals can answer that question much better. But what we're hearing is this is something that's going on. So India has to protect. That's the most important. Has to protect its industrial kind of complexes and economic centers, because both China and its very strong ally Pakistan want to target that to what I call disrupt India's economic progress.
Thank you so much, sir. And viewers, I hope you had as much fun listening to this as I did. I know I kind of got into the discomfort zone of Sridhar Chityala ji a little bit, but he's my elder brother. I can take those liberties with him. Thank you so much, Professor. You are a professor in my eyes, sir. Thank you for being patient. And I think your viewers benefited from this. Look, viewers, it's not just enough for you to watch this program and just do nothing. We might be angry. Use that anger, create your own Proton mail account, write to the local MP, wherever you are in the world. Tell them, look, what have you done? These are all blatant abuse of their powers, whether it is the people sitting in World Bank or in IMF. And I'm not even touching about some other statement that Banga said about Indus Water Treaty. We'll not even look at that. Let's ignore that, because India has ignored it. So why give credence to what he said? Thank you so much, Sridhar ji. And we'll be back again with Sridhar ji next Sunday, same time. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful. We had a great time debating, dissecting, etc. So I think it was wonderful. Thank you so much, Sri.
Last takeaway. Remember, United States has not taken any assets out of Pakistan. But some people say that the any word has one consonant in front of it. You can put that word, that letter yourself, and you can finish up that sentence. Thank you so much, sir. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much.